Hi everybody, thanks for joining. This is our monthly webinar. This one is about introducing TUMI Mobility Data Hub. Before we go into the presentation, we will do a bit explanations about who we are and what we do. DigitalTransport4Africa, DT4A. It's a collaborative digital commons and global network. We are working to scale up and support urban mobility projects through open and standardized data initiative. So we have three main pillars to learn, which is part of this is to learn from different convenings and these communities. And also the second pillar is about creating data sets, analysis and tool development. And then also sharing what we have created or collected data through this network. So WRI is right now the consortium manager, but you can see other partners down below. And these are some of the cities, engagements, and capacity that building that we are involved in at this moment, divided into different regions: Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, Western Africa. At this moment, different levels of engagement, and then we've been having this ongoing DT4A Innovation Challenge where we have selected four different winners from 4 different African cities. They are in the process of mapping the bus routes for different purposes in these 4 cities. And then we have every other month like a web newsletter out. You can find those on the websites as well. You can also subscribe to us. For this recent one in April, and the next ones will happen in June. So you can read about the new launch paper and then some of the data set that we have got from our partners like World Banks and Go Metro, and then the recent Paratransit Day event. So today's webinar is about introducing TUMI Mobility Data Hub, and then this the DT4A webinar series is a monthly event. So we are organizing this, and then the purpose is to exchange knowledge around what's happening with the public transport and data and in African cities and beyond. So especially undertaken by consortium partners. So TUMI GIZ is one of the main partners of this initiative. So we have Frederick and Lena presenting. So I'm gonna stop sharing and then I'll give the floor to you. How do I stop sharing? Yeah.
Thanks, Ian.
Yes.
Very good. Hi, nice to meet you all. I'm Frederick.
My name is Lena. Hi, everyone.
So we both work at GIZ, and GIZ is TUMI, one of the partners or the main partners in TUMI. There's also here now to explain what our TUMI Data Hub is. So maybe first, let me start by kind of explaining what TUMI is. And you see all these logos at the bottom right. We are a consortium of many partners put together that focus on sustainable urban mobility. And our initiative, we try to take actions, we try to support policy, cities, really from the urban level to increase sustainable mobility in cities. So whatever, getting away from a car, getting on a bike, making buses better, whatever that takes, capacity development, a lot with gender equality and making sure everybody has the rights to movement within towns is where we focus. And I think a lot of the people on the call are also focused on the same things, so I don't really need to spend too much time here. But the question is, what is TUMI data? And what you can see here, this is not Africa, this is Latin America, where we started our work. Actually finished recently together with CAF, which is the Latin American Development Bank. They were one of the partners of TUMI, but our direct partner here. And where we came from was trying to drive and push open data. And our main focus is the Mobility Data Hub here in the middle. On the top right, you see here was the drive. And during our process, we tried to answer several questions. And we really went through and said, okay, how do we get a digital platform? Number one. But to do that, and when we do that, we also need to have use cases and pilots. And that's where number two came in, is that we had some pilot cities that we worked with. And then we came into the, I would say, more academic level and research side, where we really tried to understand where the innovation comes from, where problems are, where solutions also are, and how to get there. So this is very complex setup, but so maybe just to kind of explain in a very quick way, is that we had three main partners, pilot cities, which was one Bogota in Colombia, Cuenca, Ecuador, and Fortaleza in Brazil. Also, Mexico and Sao Paulo, Mexico City and Sao Paulo were also pretty much pilots. So we can almost say we had 5 pilots, and we worked on understanding how to use data to come up with decisions, and how to really use that data to be able to understand the situation and take that to be able to then go and come up with ways of making decisions. So maybe just to run through, in Bogota, we were trying to understand for the city and with the city and on behalf of the city, how people are moving around town and how to increase the ridership per vehicle, because they have a big congestion problem and they wanted to instigate and really support car sharing. And we really, it's called Pico Placo. It expired, and there's a lot of legal issues that happen there. And we tried to understand how can it legally, technically, and physically also be integrated that more people can share vehicles. And just one of the insights that we got out of this is that a lot of women are not willing to do this. And we then dove in and said, okay, why aren't they willing to? And then now understanding how can these issues be solved, that women can also become people that share cars, and in general to get more people per car, which I know TUMI isn't so happy to always do cars, but this is something that we really focused on. And then with Cuenca and Sao Paulo, we worked on cycling, how to understand after COVID, how to increase the cycling in Cuenca of their bike share system. The numbers dropped off. And we had many issues from the city where they said, we don't know why it dropped off. We don't know where the people went, what happened. And we went in there to really understand the data from the bicycle sharing agent, but also from the legal perspective, what contracts need to be signed by cities that they can get the data that they need to be able to even understand and make decisions. So there's many problems on all these things, but the coolest one in my eyes would be really Mexico City that we did, where we tried to analyze, or we did analyze, the bus frequency, on-time departures, and distances and passengers ridden based on a very big Excel table that they had. And that was transformed then into a more of a dashboard. And this was very internal. I know we talk about open data, but these are critical issues that they were facing to understand why buses were late, to be able to then improve their bus operations. And a lot of things came out of that, but they came up with a few key insights to say, all right, certain bus lines at certain times of the day would be better fed if they skipped half of the bus stops, to really just come from where people live to the CBD, and in the afternoon to switch it around, and using this data to increase the efficiency and adjust bus lines to get better at serving the people. So these are just some insights. We did some very interesting academic papers, and they're all coming out. So a lot of this is still in the final publication. You guys will be seeing this in the next few, I would say 4 to 6 weeks. We'll be able to start now producing a lot of these written outputs. But one thing I wanted to say before we move on to the next slide is that when it comes to open data, I really believe that Latin America is one of the leaders in the legislative side of it, because these countries that we worked with, their laws say any data that's there, it's paid for by the citizens, so it should be open source. And a lot of information is available online. I would almost say sometimes too much information, but public information is available, and it's accepted by the government officials to say, oh, this is data, let's release it and make it open, which I think isn't the case in Africa. A lot of Asian cities are also not the case. But this is what made it easy for us to really understand where, when, what works best with open data.
Also, to add on that slide, thank you so much
Please.
for also explaining all the details of the pilot cities. That was really incredible work that was done and very interesting for us to also know what are the use cases in the cities, right? But all what brought it together, what was kind of the umbrella of this project, was the Mobility Data Hub, which is actually what we would like to focus on today, because we think that is so important when we talk about open data and the infrastructure that is also behind it. So that is kind of our introduction to the topic.
Cool. All right. And then why we must work together. I think that's clear for me. I'm not sure how it is for everybody else in the world, but we want to understand that evidence-based decisions are made. And this is what our key driving factor is that these people that are in positions to make decisions are doing this based on data and based on evidence with well-considered analysis, well-considered data that can feed into making these things. And there we see is where this lack is that a lot of the urban mobility data isn't up to the quality. It's not even there. It's not accessible in one place. And sometimes the people who created it have a little bit of bias to make sure that it's favorable in their eyes. But this is one why we must really link data to mobility, is to be able to create these better decisions and creating these conditions for improving traffic of the citizenry. And that's where we see that these things can really work together when it comes to urban planning, when it comes to monitoring the KPIs and really judging what the success of an administration, of a project is, or of any sort of vantage point from the mobility within a city. And I think that a lot of new data is being created daily. A lot of new applications and AI techniques are being created on a day-by-day basis, that there's so many easy ways now to pick up that you don't need a specialized camera that has certain software and subscriptions. If you have the right people, if you have the right attitude, if you have the right understanding of where your problems are, coming up with solutions to understand and be able to, I would say, influence these situations is getting easier day by day. If you have the right people, if you have the right setup and the right attitude, there's a lot of ways that data and mobility can really work together and create applications, use social media, creating, using third-party data, visual data, drones, satellites, and so on and so forth. But this can really go on. But this is really more the high-level part. Next slide, we can talk about the data governance, which is also a big issue, which is thinking in silos. Because a lot of these data sets and a lot of this information is locked away and it's kept a secret. Even within governments, there's one department that has one information and they don't want to share it with another department within their own agencies, let alone to the public. And I think that's one of the key aspects that need to be unlocked, and that we believe through the TUMI Data Hub is what we're trying to do. But also standardizing this, creating these processes that these things can actually become easy and standardized. And you see here, this picture is from Hamburg, and these dots show how many departures per square kilometer are there per day. And the dark green ones are more than 2,000 departures per day. The other ones, I think that there is a lot of no houses there, but this is more of a transport map to understand how many departures per Kachel, per, I don't know, square is there. So these are simple things that can really create easy understanding to understand, okay, well, it's all green, good, we're good. Or it's not green, what's the problem? So this is where data governance comes into play, and that's exactly why data hubs are so important, because data is just numbers on an Excel table, and to be honest, it's boring. And I think that it's not the data that's so important, it's what you take from the data, it's how you use the data, it's how you combine it with different data sets, and to really create insights and understand how to create the data sets to make it even interoperable with the other data sets. And that can only be done if it's all working together with one. And this is where Data Hub really creates these sort of a location where things can be put, where they can be analyzed, criticized, and really work towards creating high quality data sets, because that's really what's important. Because garbage in, garbage out is a saying that they say, which is very easy to understand But if you do have high quality data sets and you have high quality people that can use, manipulate, and analyze these data sets, then you really do have the basis for creating better trends, creating better changes within your city. And these data hubs are something that's easy. It's open source. We've created now our data hub on an open source set. All our code is open source, and we really want to create the attitude or support the attitude of the open data community to drive a collective change within the world. And we can't do it ourselves. We're just supporting something here with our data hub, but we feel that we do have some infrastructure that will be usable for many other cities that don't have technical capacity, that don't have the infrastructure available to set up a data hub like this.
And I think once you have the infrastructure available to create such a data hub, you really can, as a city, focus on building the technical capacity, on collecting the data, analyzing it, right? And this is really where TUMI can come in by providing this infrastructure to make makes this possible, to focus on creating the data sets, on analyzing them, and using the data actually.
Now comes our pitch. What we are, where we're going. So hub.tumidata.org is our website. So you can look at tumidata.org, that's our WordPress, but on the top right, that is the actual database that we created that's based on CCAN. And as this picture here depicts, is we've created it as a scalable system. And we have our main hub where all data is collected, but our real intention is that every city has their own hub. And that's because data comes from the city themselves. And this is where it is, this is where it stands, and it has to come bottom up. And so what we did here was we created several sites: Mexico City, Bogota, Cuenca, Fortaleza, and also Kigali, just as a side one. But we worked on these data hubs as CCAN data hubs, which are all the same or similar to the original data hub. And what we've created here is I would say it's a very large pool of parallel data hubs. And what we're trying to do is create data hubs everywhere. And there's many other data hubs that aren't ours, and we're happy to have them, and we're looking at them, and we're trying to harvest from them. But the crucial understanding is that we want to create a central space for mobility data, to say, okay, if you want to look for mobility data, one place you can stop by is tumidata.org to be able to understand, and you can filter it by city, by country, by data type, by anything. But Lena will get to you shortly on that, and we can go from there. And we have 3 different ways of being able to host a city's data online. And the first one is that a city or you or anybody has a data set that's shareable with Creative Commons license. They can send it to us and we will upload it on our data hub, making sure the tags are right, and then it's there for the world to see. The second option, what we have, is that if we do have a city that's interested, that really wants to say, it doesn't even have to be a city, it can also be an organization or any sort of aspect of mobility that is looking for building up their capacity in Data Hub, is that we create a Data Hub for them. So just like we have in Kigali, we can create a Data Hub in any other city. It takes about, 4 hours of our consultants' work, and there's all of a sudden a new magic CCAN with the city's name in front of it. And the last thing is where we really want to get to is that these cities take it on themselves, so that we provide the Data Hub infrastructure. We can even have it installed on their servers, which we've learned is a little bit of a difficult task because a lot of cities are very secure about their servers. But when it comes to that, software be installed, they can fork it from our GitHub, however they want to do it. They can paint the front end different. We don't care what you do with it. And in the end, whatever you have, though, we are going to harvest. And that's the beauty about CCAN. What we learned is that you can harvest any CCAN onto your CCAN all over the world, and it's broadcasted automatically, updated in real time, and it's there. And if you take it from your website, from that website, or the third website, for us, As long as the data is out there, as long as it's being used, systems are being improved, we're happy. And this is really where we're looking to go to be able to create this. So I think I'm talking a little bit fast. So if you guys have any questions, please jump in. But the next slide will then be how we even want to analyze and understand it. So the CCAN is a software, which is it's a web interface with a SQL backend database that's solid, open source, everything is secure, everything is clear. And then what we've also installed is Matomo, which is also an open source analytics tool where we can really understand and look who came from which place, what did they look at, where are they going, how long did they spend? Because what's really important isn't that the data hub is there, it's that the data hub is used. And this is the analytics side of the hub from a user perspective. And then there's also where we're working on now in our second phase is really to understand which data sets are downloaded, how many APIs have been connected, which softwares are pulling off of these data sets to be able to use it within their apps is really what's important for us. And then going back to this software as a service application for us is that we want to accelerate this development. We want to have this. So that's why we're trying to share it. And whenever anybody wants it, we have a database, we have the analytics tools, and its options are available. We ensure that we are GDPR compliant. Our servers right now are sitting in Germany on secure servers here in Germany. And if you want to run it here, it's sitting here. If they want to run it on theirs, it's going to be wherever legally within that city, within that country, however the system works, can be set up there. And we provide also at this time, we're still looking for new cities. So we will also provide the support in the setup and also in the, I would say, administrative processes of setting up a data hub. It's really an ecosystem, and it's more than just collecting the data. It's also about who's responsible for the data, where is it uploaded, in what intervals are they updated, who is going to be responsible for any queries, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of, how would I say, flexible approaches to where we're going, but it takes also a lot of will and desire from the cities themselves. And this is where we're going now. We're really finding a lot of people and a lot of cities are very keen to do this. Sometimes they're a little bit hesitant because of, I would say, not feeling secure with the technical side, because a lot of these cities don't have this infrastructure. And this is exactly why we said, okay, let's create it as a service that there's 3 levels. And as long as the data is out there, from which source it comes from, it's not really that important. It's really important that the data is from a reliable source, that it's open source, that it's Creative Commons, but there is not any limitations as such right now on our thinking. So whatever happens in practice, that's a whole nother story. But right now we're really open to the world. We want to create open data, and this is where we're coming. That's, I think, the end of the presentation, right? Good.
It is. That was as a theoretical, I would say, part of it. And we would like to also show you the hub a little bit. So let me also share with you.
I don't know if there's any questions in the chat. Let's see.
There are a bunch that we can go through after the hub.
Okay.
Yes, it will be quick. Let me share this. Perfect. I hope you all can see it.
Coming.
It's coming. It stays
Okay.
low.
Okay.
Worked better earlier.
I think my colleague Valeria already posted the link to our website also in the chat. So please also feel free to open it yourselves. It doesn't seem to be. Let me do that again.
Let me try to share that.
Yeah, maybe.
Technical difficulties.
There we go.
Can you guys see the
Now
screen?
it's working.
Yes, we can see the screen now. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
perfect.
you gotta tell me
Now,
this.
this is a mobility data hub that we've created together with CAF, as my colleague Frederick explained already. Now, there in the first search bar, you can really search for any data that you're interested in for any city. If you go down a little bit, you can also find a world map. So this is clickable. You can click on the regions that you're interested in, and you see the cities that we currently have data for in the hub. So currently we have 49 cities actually, or data for 49 cities available on the hub. And you can, yeah, really just click around. Maybe let's go through it now a little bit.
Can we go to, yeah, the last,
Sorry, it's better. Just the cable's a little bit short here.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Now then you have some, I guess it's a little bit meta, you have some data about the data hub. So you can see how many data sets we have at this point, how many resources and by how many groups we have collected the data. Now the groups were something that when we initially scouted the data, we thought, okay, what data sets are relevant for integrated mobility planning, right? So that was like a long process. We came up with a methodology there, and we set it with these groups. So you have environmental data, we have individual transport data, planning policy, public transport, raw mobility data, and traffic generating parameters, and then also the general transport category. And you can also see how many data sets in each category there are available. And then you have some information on our project. Now, if we click on one data set, I'm really just clicking through it. Let's maybe try Buenos Aires. You can see that we have 90 data sets for the city of Buenos Aires. You can see the different formats that we have data in, and also, again, the groups that I showed you earlier. And when you are familiar a little bit with CCAN, which is really the most used, a very popular open data platform architecture for building these open data portals, you will kind of get familiar with the structure of a CCAN platform. I can click here, for example, on the GTFS frequency. You can find more information on the data set. And finally, you can download the resource, or you can go to the resource, which will then actually take you to the original source that you can also download it in. Sorry, the internet is a little bit slow here. And then you can also download it from here, and you can also find more information. So the hub really brings it all together in one space. And I think that's all we have to present to you today. Please feel free to click through the hub yourselves and let us know what you think. And then we can maybe also go through the questions here. I'm
already starting to answer a few of them.
Yeah, I think it's better to answer in presentation mode, maybe, Frederick. I see you're answering as a learner, but
Yeah.
it's for the record recording. I think it's probably easier to. Should we start that now or?
Sure.
Okay.
There's also Leonardo on board. I see him writing something. We'll get to you at the end. Maybe go scroll up a little bit. But he was one of the trophy partners that helped us on that. Can you go all the way to the top? There's quite a few questions. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. All right. So there we go. Jackie, is the open data ecosystem also true for Brazil? I understand the context. There's a little more complex. Yes, complex. But they have also the same laws and regulations that data is open. This is actually what I was talking about with Sao Paulo yesterday. But it is more complex. And for example, the Fortaleza data hub that they have is not accessible from outside of Brazil. They have a national data hub that's accessible where we're planning to harvest the data, but it is complex. And again, Latin America is very strong in what they do, but it is very complex. And honestly, if you don't speak Spanish, it's really difficult to even work there. That was my experience, but it's Brazil does have that in their legal rules to share data. And then the next question, also again from Jackie, what exactly is Data Hub? How does it get maintained? The current maintenance is by us, and that's going to be a long-term, I would say, project is where we are. So this is something that's not has no end in sight. And the institutional structures is what's currently being developed. And what we're doing now is working on a sort of package deal, because sustainability really means having the data sets updated, having infrastructure, it's there, it needs to be, the server needs to be paid for. That's one question. But having the data sets usable, that's the sustainability plan where we're working on, to really understand how to use these, I would say, institutional knowledge of our partners, working with many German cities. So Ondex was our partner, and he's worked with many German cities with the National Data Hub, and he has a lot of experience that he's already shared with us. And this is where we're going now to develop this plan and really share this. And DT4A comes in as a very good partner, where we want to do this within their African cities. I'm not sure exactly what DATUM is, DATUM, and mobilitydata.org with Eric. I'm just actually, we're in touch. We met in Washington, and we're trying to find out how we can work on more these, how would I say, these synergies and really on these meta levels to really understand how open data, how would I say, protocols and these type of things really move forward. If you have any more questions, please post them, but I'm going to go on to Antoine. What open license of the data sets? I thought I answered that. I put in it's Creative Commons is what we're going for. CC BY, and we really always, and there was a big action and activity that when we did our scouting, to really go back and make sure that what we're sharing actually is Creative Commons, because this needs to be ensured to make sure that we're allowed to share it. But the principle of open data is to be open.
It is, but once you click on the data set, you will also see the license for each resource actually on the hub. So that is of course important. So where's the data coming from, right? So you can see this on the subpage of each resource. Please also feel free, if you have a question, just raise your hand or please speak up.
Okay, so next one. Is it possible to have this open data on mobility created in my country, Nigeria? Definitely, Windhoek. Also, if we have data sets, if we have, I would say, clear context and how you want to do this, we're happy to engage. Please get in touch with us. And we really do want to integrate. I see that already jumping to Jackie's point. Integration is very key. Then for transport supply, it is kind of a sensitive data, but for traffic demand data, we experience difficulties in AFD about securing personal data, very critical for mobile data instance. Yes, we worked on a point with, what was that, in Mexico, I believe, right? With these cell phone data, but that was anonymized data. So I'm not sure what you were meaning on this one. Maybe you could elaborate.
Yes, just for instance, you know, this kind of data, you have household surveys for data which are very normally the basis for the analysis of the traffic demand, but it can be very sensitive because it's personal data. And for mobile data, it was the same, meaning how you anonymize, actually. I think this is the tricky challenge.
Yes, it is.
Because you know, for instance, if you go, I think it has evolved. It has been a few years that I didn't look at it very carefully, but okay, of course, if you know that someone is moving from my place to where I'm working, that you know it's me. So it was in Senegal. We experienced difficulties about this.
Okay.
With the local authority for personal data.
That they didn't want to share it, or that they shared it that shouldn't have?
They didn't want to share accurate enough data.
I would say open data is one side, but there's also other information that can't be open. And this is where I think a lot of these applications come into play that governments or cities or experts can manage, is that how do you mix open data with critical data that shouldn't be public? Because this data set's public, this data set's not, but once you mix it and create it into an app, this app can be made public, but the data that's supposed to be secret should be kept secret. This is also our intention, because it's what can be made public should be, but there's a lot of things that shouldn't be. But this is kind of now the evolution where we're looking at is how can you use that to create applications, to create insights by mixing open and not open data. And I think that we do have to be careful about not sharing something that shouldn't be shared, because that's also just as bad as not sharing.
At least what our approach was to say, we want to concentrate on what we call infrastructure data. Meaning, for instance, transport supply, where are the bus lines, where are the stops. It's more like infrastructure, and it's not about personal data. And personal data is another thing. It's so we have two kinds of data. One is oil data, is personal data, and you have infrastructure data. So this is how we deal with this actually for the moment. But it's I'm very interested by the initiative.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Thank you for sharing. Also, the instance assemblies that we can create, they don't necessarily have to be open. I mean, this is what we aim for. But as we explained earlier, we have the thinking in silos phenomenon. If data is not shared between city departments, they can also use this infrastructure to share their data on there, and then it doesn't need to be openly available necessarily.
And I think that just to give like an opportunity, what I'm trying to push inside AFD, but it's still a long process, is that at the end of the loan agreement, for instance, or grant agreement, then you have a dedicated clause to say, okay, at the end, data, you need to send it to TUMI Data Hub or whatever. So I think it could be very powerful also to have, I think, with CAF, with the World Bank, to populate the data hub. It can be a good leverage.
That's actually a very interesting point. I think we should get into deeper discussions how these data sets can be shared, because there's a lot of resources put into these, and then they're just used for one project and then forgotten, and the next people come in and do the same thing again. I think that would really be a nice, a very nice thing to add on top of that. You had mentioned something about the infrastructure data and really understanding to use it, but I think we can come back to that. Maybe we should get into discussions, because I think I met Stefan in Washington about the same thing in Senegal, and it was the same discussion. So I think that these problems are going on everywhere, and if you guys have any good ideas on that, we would be happy to have an exchange how we can include your data sets on ours, create some other platforms where this could work, but there's a lot of synergies that can be had. What's the next?
There's one more question from Leonardo. He asks, is it possible for organizations not necessarily backed by governments to send data sets they have created, such as data on sidewalk conditions over time or GTFS? I think, sure, we would like to populate the data hub more. That is, we did an initial data scouting, which is the data that I kind of showed to you quickly, right? The data sets that we have uploaded at the moment. Generally, I would say, yes, definitely. So, Leo, please feel free to get in touch if you have some data sets that you would like to share.
And then there was a question about, can people create dashboards and visualization querying the data directly? Yes, our showcase is still empty because we're still populating this, but this is really where we're going and where we see the use of this to create these visualizations. Are we going to directly do Tableau or Metabase? Not sure what we're going to be using, but trying to create. We're going to be trying Jupyter notebooks to be able to have easy queries that we can create transport deserts if you have GTSF data, or if you have something connected to OpenStreetMaps, that we can find ways to link this to create easy ways. What we found in Latin America, though, is that standardized applications are not so easily usable because every city is different, every situation is different, every place is different. So the principles don't change. And this is where we're working on to understand, okay, the work we did in Colombia, we did this. You can't just copy and paste what we did, but to understand the principles and the methodology and being able to share that maybe in a video or in a to-do, a tutorial, we want to create these codes and have these things put up and say, okay, this is how we did it here. If you want to do it yourself, you need to do step A, B, C, D. And either way, it needs professionals that understand computers and technology. That's, I would say, out of question in this whole thing. Things are getting easier with these AI tools nowadays. I would say the level of experience necessary is really going down day by day. And I think that there is a lot of potential going on in the long term.
We have one question by Ted. Please speak up.
Yeah, this is just a follow-up to the question you just answered. I'm with Trufi Association as well, and we have a small team of volunteers who are interested in data visualizations, and they know what they're doing, but we don't have enough data to throw at them. If you're looking for people to play in your sandbox, I have people.
Thank you. Good to know. We'll be in touch. We were just talking about you guys earlier, funnily, here at UBI Labs, but that's something that we have to create a sandbox. That's actually a good note. I think we'll probably create a page called the sandbox, but this is what we're trying to do. It's not, to be honest, it's not easy. I've been learning about computers the past 2 years. The more I learn, the more there is and the scarier it gets, but we're getting there, and it's moving along, and that it is long-term. And you're asking about a login.
Yes, the Matomo analytics tool actually comes with every CCAN instance. So no, you won't be able to log into our account. But once the city is ready to adopt this, like if they want their own city instance and we transfer to their own service, they also get this analytics tool. So they will see how many persons enter, what data sets they are looking for, maybe what data sets they are looking for that are not available yet on the hub, maybe also indicating that there is a need to collect a specific data set, for example. So that would be more something for the city officials once we have set up the own city instance for that city. Yes, we're also happy that it is long-term.
TDCI question we're going to ignore. Do you have an outreach strategy to populate the hub? Jack, that sounds great. We do have several. We're still working in beta and trying to make sure that we're ready before we really do our outreach. But yes, I think that this is now going to really take off, and we are developing this strategy and going to be very reliant on all of you and on all these networks that we're already in to help us. We're just a little bit worried about having too many data sets and really trying to first understand even how we can share a data set, because it's also very important to understand where this data set comes from, that we can share it again, because we need to make sure that it has I would say, a reliable source. We're not judging the reliability and the details of the data set as such, but the authors and their allowing to being able to share these data sets is also very important. But it kind of brings into the next point that we don't want to have wasted resources, and we need to make sure that that these, I would say, banks and development projects that are happening, that we capture those, but also that we capture other data sets like Leonardo was saying, that's being done, I would say, despite the governments within cities. So that's something that is really interesting. And then what is your financial sustainability plan for the hub? I mean, besides server costs, I don't see much that there is really necessary to do, and it's all open source. And once we start cloning this, we're getting better, and we're trying to get it that it's a 2-hour process, that a new instance can be instigated quickly. We harvest everything, and then it's all on the new hub. Really, the sustainability matters on, do we get cities to use it? Do we get institutions that have long-term interest in having open data to use this? And by the way, just another point I want to clarify, this front end that you saw from the TUMI Data Hub is the way we envisaged it. And we have how a CSV file will look, and we tried to make it clean and easy to use with our colors, with our logos and our style, but you can paint it differently. What we created is the backend, and that we have a system that is available, and what we chose were all extensions that are part of the long-term update package. We didn't create any sort of specialized, I would say, setup that when an update of the next CCAN comes, that everything gets messed up. We have the 10 set previews and Docker and all these different types of plugins and extensions, and these are in the long-term path. So that means that updates every 6 months, or I think it's every 6 months is what he said, every 6 months will be done. And when we update, if once you're on our, I would say, connected to our TUMI Data Hub network, an update on ours will be propagated to all of them. And we created in a way that's safe and updatable and easy to use, that long-term these platforms can work. Will they look old in 5 or 10 years? Of course, maybe we'll do something. But for now, we created something that could last and be there for in perpetuity, I would say. And that's where we see as our sustainability plan for the hub. So you could rest assured that we're there. And once it's on your servers anyway, it belongs to you, and you could do with it what you want. You can shut it down, you can make it better, you can change it, update it, customize it. So one of the things that we did, just as like a little anecdote, is that the national government of Rwanda is working with GIZ projects, and we supported by lending out our tech expert to be able to create their national data hub, which is also based on CCAN, and they used our backend and just painted the front pages to fit within their logo. And now they're about to release this and used ours as the basis, which saves a lot of time. And this is where we're really trying to do, is that setting up something like this, you need to tender it, you need to do it, you need to have a lot of permissions and money to do this. And we're trying to cut that out and making the barrier of entry as low as possible. So if you guys have any other ideas with cities or with other things that we can do, we are open and happy to have discussions with anyone, especially in 4 African cities where DT4A and us are looking to create strong partnerships.
There's one more question from Jacqueline. Do you have an outreach strategy to populate the hub? Of course, our networks here will help. Yes, that would be amazing, of course. We have launched the hub in Bogota in mid-April, actually. And we just came back from the ITF conference in Leipzig last week, where we also demonstrated the hub, where we met a lot of people and talked about the hub and its potential. So yeah, that was kind of what we did. But of course, this network is also very valuable for us. So if you have questions or you would like to get in touch with us bilaterally afterwards, please reach out to us.
Can you explain the difference between TUMI Hub and TDCI?
We've tried to ignore it, but
sorry.
So, but
I thought you missed it. Sorry. Otherwise,
no. But they're working more on the national level data, trying to understand what the CO2 emissions are of the vehicle fleets within, I don't know, one country. And what we're trying to do is create the infrastructure for cities to upload their data, which hopefully TDCI will build upon and take from. So they're coming from the top down and wanting to create standardized data sets. And
on a national level, where we're really working with the cities together on city level, on the urban level. But yeah, there are of course like a lot of synergies there. So and TUMI data is of course part of the TDCI also. Yes, thanks, Jacqueline, for the link. Yes, starting.
Thank you.
Also, data sets. Are there any other questions? TDCI.
Transport Data Commons Initiative.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. My pronunciation.
the connection, it's all GIZ supported, and I would say GIZ staff that are driving this, but more TDCI is an initiative that's taking in many organizations and doing it in a very democratic manner to create consensus on how such a platform should look, where it's to be hosted, what is to be named, and it will go, I would say it will start growing, but we're running in parallel. I'm hoping they're going to use our CCAN, that we can then share it with them and then back harvest all their data sets, that even what they have will be on ours, and what we have, they can use selected ones. But yes, also Antoine, thank you. We look forward to being in touch with you with AFD. Jackie.
Hi, thanks. This is just really fantastic. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the environmental data that you're collecting. It's super important for climate finance and generally bringing the air pollution and transport sectors together. So I was very excited to see that.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. It's so important for us working in the transport sector. When we scouted the data sets, what we did was actually scout from home. Basically, we did a desktop research. We looked for what data sets are actually openly available right now. So we can bring them together and link to those in the hub. Do we have it still? So there are a lot of different environmental data sets available. How to share it maybe?
Oh, it's on yours to share the screen. Please share the Brave browser. You guys can see it? Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
So once we go on the environmental data sets, that we can see here, air quality data, rainfall, average annual rainfall. So really a lot of different data sets that fall under that category.
And just to make it clear, Jackie, that we classified this within our own logic of understanding how can we understand what traffic inducing, what environmental data sets are. So this isn't, I would say it's scientific in a sense, but this isn't clear that we say, okay, this is the environmental data and it's only environmental data. It would fall under other things that aren't directly linked to traffic, but trying to say, okay, we need to bring this in because this has an influence on how mobility is felt within a city, whether it's air pollution or rainfall and flooding and these type of aspects. There's many different factors that create mobility, and that's where we were trying to break that down. But we are also very, I would say, flexible here. Another Google Insights Explorer, Environmental Insights Explorer. Yes, we are trying to really work with them also. There's a lot of, they're pushing a lot also, and they do have a lot of data, especially when it comes to modal splits and these type of informations. Just understanding, especially with CAF, is really getting deep into with them to, and we really want to know how is modal split and how can they share something with us that's shareable and that we can then reshare. And there's a lot of, I would say, fine print that we need to go through before that can be done. But this is really a lot of low-hanging fruit that's there.
Jackie, do you have another one?
Yeah, just really quickly. I think this is so awesome that you're doing the integration. I would maybe be more refined with the environmental data. It might be great to have the meteorological data because one of the, separate air pollution, climate, and maybe just have a little more refinement in these, how you're categorizing these data sets. And the reason I'm saying that is that I think with climate change, as you mentioned, we're going to have extreme heat days, we're going to have flooding, you're going to have different disruptions to the transport system. And so increasingly, we're going to have our transport data linked to sort of meteorological conditions and so that could be really great as a sort of separate category. And then obviously the emissions is a very specific kind of data, and there's a similar movement around technology and open data and open standard and standardized data around emissions. So I think maybe for your next iteration, thinking about how to refine some of those categories and the way you search for environmental data might be really great. But thank you very much. It's a terrific presentation.
Thank you so much. Yes, that's a good comment. When we actually started with the grouping, we started with a tree, and then we had our branches that went on so far. Like it was a huge tree that we had in the end, and we kind of tried to get it as, yeah, like really zoom out and have only like a few branches. But yeah, that's a good comment, and we will definitely take that into consideration for next iterations. Thank you.
So we are okay. Go.
I just shared one last point. I just shared what we, from our perspective, what we worked out. This is kind of a few months old, but what are the key data sets that we need to look at to really use data within a city? We called it the 7 key data sets. So I just shared the link here so you guys can open it before you leave your Zoom, have it in your history for a download. But it's just a PDF document with a few understandings of the different layers that we see are necessary to create a decent understanding of mobility within a city. So yes, please, Ian, back to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Frederick. And then as we can think more ways that we can populate your hub with our DT4A data set. So I'm seeing there's a huge gap in Africa yet, so we are happy to help. So it's also good that you've already talked to Eric. So I mean, all of their data set, mobility data sets are also free, like open. It's GTFS. So thanks for the presentation, and we will see you next month, which is in a day, with from UC Berkeley PhD students. Thank you very much. I'm gonna close it. So save all the
Thanks,
links.
everyone.
Before. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.